exciting. Hi, folks. Thank you so kindly for joining us on this beautiful Friday night here in the Bay Area. Very happy to have you. I'm Car Johnson, the event coordinator for Green Apple Books, and tonight I have the pleasure of introducing Johanna Hedva alongside Vivian Sming to celebrate Johanna's latest book, Your Love Is Not Good. Let's make a little bit of noise. Thank you for joining us both in person and online. Hello, online audience. We appreciate you. We're broadcasting from San Francisco. We are on unceded Ramaytush Ohlone land, and we hope you join us in our pledge to turn land acknowledgement into action by either donating your time or monetary means to an Indigenous organization every time you hear a land acknowledgement, or in my case, speak a land acknowledgement. I have very brief business before we get to the fun part of the evening. Now's a good time to silence your cell phones if you haven't already. Please do check out our full event calendar on our website at greenapplebooks.com. We have a really great season ahead, so if you are enjoying the event that you are currently attending, you might like what else we have going on in the coming months. The restroom is behind us. It is available after the event, not during the event, and it's for attendees of the event at this time. It's like one of the only places off the floor that my colleagues have to use, and we try and respect that. So during event time, for people attending our event, we appreciate that. And thank you for buying books from us if you're able. We always appreciate it. If you've been here before, you've heard me say that when you buy books from us, not only do you support us as an independent bookstore, but you also support the authors who put so much work into writing these books, and then you get to have a book, which might be the best part. So if you're able, we always appreciate it. And without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and introduce the two people that are joining us tonight. First, Vivian Sming is an artist-publisher based in the Bay Area who produces a wide range of artist books through her publishing studio, Sming Books. Formed in 2017, the studio experiments with books as art, discourse, exhibition, and archive, working in collaboration with artists whose works and ideas inform design, material, and printing choices. Sming is invested in creating books from practices that are challenging to represent on paper and is committed to promoting critical discourse and advancing cultural equity through the format of publishing. Let's give a hand for Vivian Sming. And last but most certainly not least, Johanna Hedva is a Korean-American writer, artist, and musician who was raised in Los Angeles by a family of witches and now lives in LA and Berlin, and they're joining us all the way from Los Angeles today. Hedva is the author of the essay Sick Woman Theory, originally published in 2016, which has now been translated into 10 languages. Hedva is also the author of the novel On Hell, which was one of Dennis Cooper's favorite books of 2018. Thank you so much. As well as the nonfiction collection Minerva, the Miscarriage of the Brain. Their albums are The Sun and the Moon and Black Moon, Lilith in Pisces in the Fourth House. And their book, Your Love Is Not Good, is the reason we are here tonight. So let's give a hand for Johanna Hedva.
Oh, this is great. I'm so happy that it's just us.
Thanks everyone for coming out.
Yeah, thank you very much for coming. This is really sweet, actually. I'm really pleased.
I think we're going to begin with an introduction and a reading to hear from Johanna first, and then have a conversation and also open it up for a Q&A.
Yes. Yeah, and since it is kind of more intimate, we can just do whatever we feel like. If anyone wants to feel something together, that would be great. So this is this thing that I began 9 years ago that's now got a physical form of object permanence that I'm holding in my hand. It's really odd to feel that way. And I don't know how to I can give you some kind of glib, jokey introductions for it, and then I'll read a little bit, which hopefully sets the tone. My publisher asked me to sum it up in one sentence, and I said I have a funny answer and a serious answer. My serious answer is meaning is slippery, and yet it keeps slicing into you. And my funny answer is don't kink shame unless kink shaming is your kink. The other thing that I was saying when it was kind of coming together is it's a story about an artist who wants to belong, but because she's an artist, she doesn't. And it's sort of about what it's like to be haunted and haunting. Because I think of some sort of premise in there is for me is that all ghosts are queer and all queers are ghosts. So that's kind of one of the things going on in it. I'm going to read a really short chapter, but it's a spicy one that I thought would be fun because I get to do a porn star voice. And it's quite short, it's about 6 minutes. So here we go. Pentimento. To modify a painting by applying a very thin coat of opaque paint to give a duller effect. Hannah appears in the doorway of my bedroom. She is nude, holding a bundle of rope. I'm going to need you to help with the ropes, she says. I wonder where she got those ropes, if she brought them with her from California. Maybe she planned this. She'd thought of our future together. There's an odor to her nakedness. My head swims with it. She wraps the rope around her body, through her legs, down her back, around her stomach, between and around her breasts, over her shoulders, making knots and doubling back, asking me to hold this or that piece, pull on this or that end, holding a piece with her teeth while she stretches another, until she is encased in a web of it, all knots and windows, tight against her skin. As I pull on them, the ropes lance her skin with red welts, and her body looks like how I'd made it look in the Eliza battle. But had I done it myself, or had she been telling me what to do from the beginning? Here she is in front of me. Hannah this, Hannah now. She raises her arms to collect her hair and holds it in a mass atop her head. Then she slides a black leather mask over her face. It has small circles of mesh for eye holes and is split by a large gold zipper with shiny teeth that are grotesque in their size, a toothy grin vertically slicing her head in two. Around the head and ears of the mask are more zippers crisscrossing the head into patches, like pieces of the bones of the skull. I stare into the mask, smell its strong scent of skin, then let my eyes fall over her body, woven into its net. I think of fish dragged up from the sea, big animals yoked by ropes and diminished by whips. I don't know what to do next. Her voice comes out of the mask. The mask does not move. Where's the camera? She says. Right, the camera. I stumble to get it. I am clumsy. I am not the one with authority. I look through the eyepiece of the camera and see her in its frame. It looks good, vivid. It's more than just sex and leather, I think, but meaningfully about power and pain and thirst, the debt of want. I know her then all at once, her right to exist, the bright white light shining from her. She is someone who we look at, black and white, and in this looking, we are taught how some of us, but not all, can dare to be. As much as a self can be bought, it can also be stolen. Meaning is slippery. Whatever you want it to be, it's whatever. She positions herself around the room, and I take photo after photo. She directs me with short commands. Over here, now here. Make this one a portrait. I say nothing. I kneel, stand over her, lie on my belly, on my back. She turns away, back to me, bends over, leans on the wall. She lies on the floor, on the bed, on her hands and knees. Our choreography is finally in sync. She tells me to sit on the bed. I sit on the bed. She comes close to me, looking down into the camera. The black mask is a hole. She lifts her legs and straddles me, one leg on either side, like Zinat did. "Do you like me like this, Daddy?" she says, and her voice is different. It squeaks, and now she's making a whimpering sound. "Is this what you want, Daddy?" she says. I snap the shutter in a fluster. Is this the kink she was talking about? Really? "Daddy, I want you to like me," she squeaks again. It sounds like every straight porn star I've ever seen. She arches her back, and now she's wiggling her ass. "Daddy, Daddy." She starts to rock on top of me. I am snapped out of the scene. I see us from across the room, her little shimmies. "Daddy, Daddy." Oh, so she is just a straight white girl. "You don't like me, Daddy? Have I been a bad girl? Daddy, did I do bad?" I understand now. I am repelled by how ordinary it feels, how ordinary it reveals her to be, and she has dared me to want this. "Yes," I managed to say, "you're very bad." This seems to thrill her, and she wriggles faster on top of me. There's the sharp smell of her BO, which makes me scrunch my face. "Daddy, you need to punish me, don't you? I did bad." "Yes," I say, "you did bad. You're the one who hurt me the most." She stops wriggling and sits up straight. She starts to tug at the zippers on the mask around the head and pull pieces of hair out of the newly opened holes. Her head is now the head of a doll, the kind that belongs to a violent child who has cut chunks of hair away. She reaches over me to her nightstand. "Here, use this," she says, and her normal voice is back, flat and hard. She is pushing something into my hand, and I see that it's a lighter. "What?" I say. "Use it to burn my hair," she snaps, and all the simpering is drained out. "And get the shot when the flames are tall." She pulls more hair out of the holes in the mask. "You want me to burn your hair? Maybe I was wrong." "Then I'll look like you," she says, and starts making a grunting noise through the mask. I understand that she's laughing. I hear in it a pure and cutting sound of contempt. She is tricky and strange and changing, and I am mislaid. Did she simper for me? Is that what she thinks I want? I put the camera down and feel an appalling confusion. Maybe I don't know her, or myself, or anyone. I fumble with the lighter and drop it. "Come on, you're ruining it." She reaches over with irked swiftness, pushes the lighter into my hand. I feel that my palms are wet with sweat. The lighter is a silver Zippo, cold and heavy. She wraps her sticky hot fingers around mine and clicks the lighter on. Still holding my hand, she guides the flame to the ends of her hair. "Get the camera ready. Don't miss the shot. Come on, look at me." She taps her hand on my face. I can't remember if it was my forehead or my nose or my cheek, but I remember she taps it hard enough to be a slap. Yes, it was actually a slap. There was a viciousness to it that I've tried to forget. Like my mother, like the woman on the street, like who I was with Leah. And then she says, "This is my fantasy, not yours." But as I am telling the story now, I want to change the word fantasy to art, because it sounds better, gives her more.
Thanks, Johanna.
Thanks for listening.
I think just to give a little more context to the lead up to that chapter.
Hold on. I didn't introduce it well.
No, you're fine. So the novel follows a protagonist who is half white, half Korean painter who's trying to make it in the art world, and has grown up in poverty, in an abusive household, and these are kind of reflected in this obsession that she has over Hana, this white woman who becomes her muse, and she becomes super, obsessed with Hana. And the paintings of Hana do really well, are the thing that might actually open up this protagonist's career. And then maybe that's enough, and not to give the rest away.
And then she has to kind of make a decision, like an ethical decision about that. I should say, like, when I started writing in 2014, the sort of elevator pitch or like conceptual prompt for myself was to start with a character, a first-person narrator who kind of on paper, in terms of like DMV boxes that we would check on a form, has all the same identity demographics as I do. But every time she has to make a kind of critical choice, I wanted her to do the thing that I disagreed with, ethically, morally, politically, or the thing that I didn't do in my own life. And I have all these, like, kind of highfalutin bourgeois novel reasons for doing that, like, because this is like a real novel in ways that none of my other works have been, and certainly not my first novel. My first novel, I just wrote a character, a first-person narrator whose politics are mine, and he just shouts them at the reader for 150 pages.
And it's pink. It's pink.
Yeah. Love it. So I thought, like, maybe I should give it a try to do the opposite, where I really think she keeps making the wrong choice. And I was working with this definition of tragedy that I read somewhere, and of course I don't remember who wrote it. But it's the definition that tragedy is where you watch a character make the wrong choice because there is no other choice. And that the heartbreak or the pathos of that is that the character probably thinks it's the right choice. So that was part of the experiment. I was saying it was kind of like anti-autofiction in this way, because we start from the same place, but we've ended up in really drastically different lives. Mm-hmm. And part of the, like, kind of fun, I guess, also of that as an experiment is, like, maybe she did choose the right things. Yeah. Like, maybe where she ended up is better than where I have ended up. I don't know,
I wanted to ask you, because I think in all of your writing, you can feel the, like there's something that's compelling you to, that, like, is compelling to, like, come out, like, almost like writing as, like, exorcism in a way. I think of your work. Like, this thing has to come out. So I was wondering, for this book, like, what was it that you felt like needed to come out? Was there, like, observations or experiences that you were having at the time that you were thinking about, questions, situations that you were in where you felt like you had to, that energy had to move forward in this form?
Yeah, I mean, we're going to get, like, trauma real fast here, which is around the time that I started writing, so, like, about 10 years ago, I had a revelation in therapy, which was that all of my relationships with women had failed, and they all had been with women who were painters, and my mother was a painter. So that was connected, and I had to think about things around, like, what did I learn from my mother, not just in terms of love, but also in terms of value and beauty and these sorts of questions that are things that I would think concern an artist. Because my mother was an artist who kind of really failed at being an artist, so she couldn't, like, get her work into the world. She was plagued by a lot of her own demons, and in a lot of ways, I was kind of her only audience member at some point. So I started from there, and like the trauma part that's also kind of like going to bring us right down is that when I started, I really did want to write a book that could heal our relationship, my mother and me. And that's one of the reasons why I thought I should write a real novel, because I thought it needed to be available in the sort of store that she could go to. And then she died in 2018 without ever knowing about this book. So there's that. That had to get worked through also. And honestly, just to say this, I mean, as someone who, obviously, like, talking about being raised by witches, like, we have a much better relationship now that she's an ancestor. Yeah, it's much closer, it's much more healed. So there was that obsession, for sure, happening. And kind of out of that, in a more, like, kind of less traumatized place, was just this interest in sort of the parasitism of desire. And also particularly around like looking at things. I mean, I think my mother being a painter taught me about like looking at the world in a certain way. I mean, one of my favorite things ever in life is to go see painting shows with painters. Because the way they look at a painting, the way they talk about it, it's just incredible. It's so stupid. And then it's really deep. They're like, look at that red. And you're like, right, that red. But it's just color. It's like I feel like painters, they just get away with so much. They're just thinking about things like color and line and space and like light. But it is so profound, So there was something about this that I can also like babble on more about with painting, but yeah.
I guess to kind of go back to like this idea of like this is a real novel,
Right? It's a real novel.
It's a real novel. I think in all of your work, whether it's writing, with your artwork, with your music pieces, it's very physical. There's a even in just what we read, it's violent sometimes, erotic sometimes, but there's a sharp physicality to that, to all of the work. And I guess I was wondering how you were, if that was something you were thinking about in this form, or if that's something that you feel like just comes through with inherently with all of the work that
yeah,
you do.
I'm just rotting in this flesh prison, and it's hard to talk about other stuff. I mean, I try to look good while I'm rotting in here, but that's like really all I have, just like looking good in my rotting flesh prison. Yeah, I mean, I can try to stay on task and talk about it.
I mean, even like, I'll just bring up like even your writing about like 9 Inch Nails or Sun O, or like there is this physical presence in all of your work, I think.
Yeah.
So just in thinking about how that really comes through like smell and through the senses that you're really able to capture. And people talk about your work as like a performance, like when you're reading your work too. It's an experience and not really less of a intellectual experience, maybe, and more of like a physical, or maybe both,
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna try like an astrological answer, and then I'll try to translate it for the non-astrologically fluent. Like, not only am I born on the same day as Marx, like I'm a Taurus sun with a Venus in Taurus, and then the anus of the universe is just right on my body in the chart. And I think what that means is that I'm kind of like a basic bitch. Like I just want my hair to look good. I want to eat good food. I want the room to smell nice. I like colors and flowers, like basic. But then, like Marx. But then We both have great hair, though. I gotta say. Also, Kierkegaard, born on the same day.
Oh my god.
Great hair. But then on the other hand, like to just, have the dust sign, the Heideggerian thrownness of being waking up in this body, just murder, murder, murder. Like it just feels like hell in here. And so the only way that I feel like I've been able to cope is to just turn my whole body into a genital. Frankly, it's just a genital. And I mean that in both the ways that it can feel pleasure and the expelling that, and all the infections and stuff. There's a lot of orifice humor in my house. But yeah, I think that for me, there's also something about having to persist in material form that feels like the only way I know how to do that is to kind of give some sort of form to what I feel this conditional nonsense inside. I have to kind of put it into some form outside. And so even though I think my work is varied in terms of genre and form in a really kind of promiscuous whirligig way, it's sort of all trying to deal with the same fundamental problem, which is it feels like hell in here. So maybe I could try to feel good. Instead, I saw a meme at the beginning of the year that said, feeling bad, try feeling good. So I'm trying to do that. But wait, I wanted to say one thing about this character in her body.
Yeah.
Which was that I had this kind of plan, or the task that I set before myself for the character, being a first person narrator, was that I wanted her voice to sound like thinking, but not thought. Meaning that I didn't want you to feel like she had arrived at the thought yet, but that she was kind of still getting there. And in order to do that, the main way to do it for me was to just have her in her body in a way that felt almost like too much. And an early reader of the book, actually the publisher of On Hell, who's a dear friend of mine now, he read it and he was like, oh, your character is infested with life. That's her problem. And I think that's correct. So at almost every sentence, there's something kind of where she's back in her body in a way that kind of surprises her. Yeah. And the other way I was trying to do that in the sentence was to just be using a lot of commas where I shouldn't have. So rather than an M dash or a colon or a semicolon or even a period or something more declarative, there would be a comma. And I wanted to do that because it was sort of to trick the reader into thinking that there wasn't an information hierarchy that had happened in the sentence yet, where they would be oh, so this clause is kind of just the same importance as that other one. Feels like they should be different, but no, okay. And that's another thing that's a very different way than On Hell used commas, because with On Hell I just didn't use any, and I should have used a lot of commas. And the whole point was to not use commas in On Hell, because I wanted him to sound like the internet. And then I also wanted the feeling of the reader, in the sentence, to be just that you were in a truck with no brakes going down a hill. You were getting to the end of the sentence whether you wanted to or not. Whereas with this one, there are a lot of commas that are kind of pausing all the time, even though horrifying things are going on in the sentence. It's oh, but there's a comma here. Maybe I can trust it. Because that is a thing. A comma is a little gesture of trust that the writer gives to the reader. It's hey, you can stop. Are you ready to keep going? Okay. And so with that, I kind of wanted to use those in places that would that you actually shouldn't trust them. This is my comma kink, I've realized, in talking about this book.
I think just going back to what you were saying about painting specifically, I'd just love to hear more about situating the character as a painter, and that this story is happening in like a contemporary art world where there is this point in time where these ethical questions are being raised. Yeah, how does painting lie within that? And
well, you and I went to the same art school.
yeah.
And, and we've, like, I feel like over these years we've talked quite a lot about it. It's like so many people I know who went to art school were all on 10 years later, like, we should have just been painters, damn it, because we would have been successful.
And the ones that are painters now.
And the ones who are painters are just fine.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you.
Good for all of them, yes.
Yeah.
So I think there was something like this is part of the thing. Is like one of the decisions I made in my own life was that I did not want to participate in the commercial art world. I was very militant about this for many years. I was like anti-object. And like I called myself that. And there's a character in here who calls herself that. She's sort of the antagonist who arrives to give a moral dilemma to the protagonist. But there's something about it where I think what's interesting to me politically, especially in the last maybe 5 to 10 years, is I feel like an understanding of politics has slipped into belongingness that is predicated on looking similar as each other, like a visual belongingness. And I don't just mean like genetically or phenotypically, like in terms of race or gender, although that is certainly the case, that the solidarity is around a kind of like identity that is a visual one, but also like how you kind of self-style into a subculture. Like, do you have the right mohawk to go to the punk show? Like, do you have the right clothes that signal a kind of allegiance to some kind of ethos, right? Religious, political, cultural, whatever. And there is some kind of distance in there for me that is like messy of, like, really I think what the novel as a form is really good at, and what I was like kind of excited to do in the form, is that it, I think better than almost any other form, it gets at this sort of interiority that a character can have, where an intention is developed around a choice, and then you get to see what happens to that choice having a consequence in the external world. So this interior to the exterior, in a novel you really can get this distance happening. And I feel like everyone can kind of relate to feeling a distance between their interior and then the external world that reads it. But that distance for a lot of us is a political one. For a lot of us. And that was the thing for me too, is like, I'm someone who looks like what I'm not. Like, I look like a white, able, cis woman. And then what I am is a Korean American, disabled, genderqueer person. And so what that has meant is that my belongingness has never been able to be predicated on the visual. Like, wherever I am, I look like I don't belong there. And then I add to it by trying to be overdressed in every occasion, as an example. But I think that there is like this kind of thing around belongingness in a community, especially a political community, that has to do with like the visual, what is represented, and then how that kind of cheats at or signals an interior. Another way to say this, I guess, like, without sounding so highfalutin or whatever with theory, is like Jasper Puar said something in Terrorist Assemblages about post 9/11, which is that what started to happen post 9/11 was people could look like a terrorist, visual, right? Which would kind of then slip into they seemed like a terrorist, the affective, and then they are a terrorist, right? Like, into the being of this person. So you go from like they look like it, and that means they are that. And I feel like the art world is a place where that happens. Like, the art world is just entirely about surface and representation and what that can mean about a thing. In a way that just seemed like a good setting to deal with some of these thoughts. And then also, I'm like kind of ostensibly in an art world. And so I was, kind of felt comfortable writing around in that place.
Yeah, I think, so, and the character, I feel like this relates to like whiteness as well, because I see the character, at least the way that I read it, as kind of rejecting the white side of herself, and that has to do with her relationship to her abusive mother who's white, her growing up in poverty, which she kind of there's like things that she associates with whiteness, but then that kind of abandonment leads to, or is also the reason she's, desires the belonging and to be loved and accepted in whiteness, and I'm equating whiteness with the art world. And I guess I wonder if you could talk about how that then gets translated into kink and like these other ways that she's embodying the world.
Yeah, I mean, the whiteness stuff was also just really, really important for me. I really wanted to use kind of fiction as like a prophylactic to get into really icky shit that made me uncomfortable. I've been saying this thing that I once saw Deborah Levy give a talk. I love Deborah Levy. And she was saying, she's so magisterial when she speaks. She's a Leo. She's like, fiction is a wonderful home for the reach of the mind. And she did that. Like, ugh. And whenever I think of this, I think of like fisting, like, and so like that fiction is both the reach and the fist, and that in fisting, it's good to like wear gloves, so it's also the glove. Mm-hmm. And so there was something, I guess, where I was like, right, like, great, I'll have this prophylactic so I can just get in there with all the stuff that makes me really feel uncomfortable. And one of the main things there was like passingness as like a condition. White passingness, cis passingness, able passingness, femme passing, all of these things. Because obviously I love the idea that nobody passes. Like, I love this as a sort of like way to subvert, a universality that we're all reaching for. But passingness also does happen, like, and it certainly happened in my life quite a lot. And being very white passing, kind of the most white passing person in my family. Like my sibling, for example, doesn't pass as white. So we both kind of grew up in the same exact conditions, but we had a totally dramatically different experience of the world around race and ethnicity. And so something about that I noticed kind of pushed me into experiences that like they didn't have. And one of those experiences was really falling the fuck in love with white women for me. Like, I just kept falling in love with them. And and I realized, like, I think one of the things that was propelling me into that was that I thought they could maybe like do something for me just by being next to them in the room, or just that whiteness could kind of rub off on me a little bit. I would get enculturated into it, or I would have that privilege or have that access. And what I realized is like, oh, the things that I thought that white women could do for me is like why I let them do so many things to me. And that felt really like I better use fiction to work that out. But yeah, like things around whiteness in the book like are very amped up because, for example, like the big kind of dramatic thing that happens in this book is that a Black performance artist calls for a boycott in the art world of any commercial gallery or museum or fair, essentially. And so the narrator has to sort of decide to join it or not. And I guess like also from that perspective, when I was writing this book, I was working in a nonprofit. So I was really kind of doing a lot of activism in my just like daily life and for a living. And I'm very the kind of person that always joins the boycott. And so I would always kind of find myself in this like frustrated moments in my job where I'd be like, why doesn't this person join the cause or join the boycott or sign the petition or donate money? Like, why? And, and I would just be asking it in frustration, and I realized that I never really gave a shit about an answer. And so writing this book allowed me to kind of ask that question and really think about what kinds of answers could come. Because a lot of the characters have their own kind of sets of like complicities and complacencies around how they demonstrate their politics or their ethics, where they decide not to do something for some reason. And most of them are not white or of some kind of, historically marginalized identity. And so it was like kind of an interesting thing to try to think through, like, yeah, why wouldn't someone join a boycott? Or like, why wouldn't someone do something that you would think that they should, politically speaking? So it was just a way to ask a question like that did make me furious.
Yeah. And okay, I'm going to bring it back to the idea of belonging, though.
Yeah.
So, yeah. In terms of how that those politics and those sets of ethics then get, I don't know. It seems like the character, as you mentioned, is seeking belonging. So that might be what's propelling.
Yeah.
her.
Yeah. I don't know about belongingness. Like, I mean, that's like, what I mean is like, I don't think I've really felt it ever.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've certainly felt wonderfully held by my friends and community. I've certainly felt in wonderful kind of solidarity and interdependency with people that I love and care about and also support and feel interdependent with reciprocally, right? But I think things like a sociality or a political kind of identity of a community, I don't know about how one feels a belongingness there. In my work doing activism for disability stuff especially, like, at some point I realized, like, oh, what you're doing is activism because it fails. Like, that's how you know what you're doing is activism. Because it just fucking fails every time. And actually, like, I think that's okay, in fact. I think, like, the alternative of that it would succeed is... I don't know about if that's like the thing to kind of use as a rubric, like a success. And yeah, it's like one step forward, 30 steps back a lot of the time with activism, but like there does seem to me to be something important about that this won't succeed because not only have we never done it before, but we're really trying to do something that's like can't even be conceived in some way. Mm-hmm. It hasn't happened at all, right? And so we're trying to do something, to really radically redefine and reshape and remake the world. So of course it's going to fail, Like we got to keep trying it again and again and again. So I feel like there's something in there around the belongingness, around political identity that is very important to me in my life, but I feel kind of like my fatalism about it is like what keeps me in it. Whereas like in this case, like with the book, like, and the art world specifically is like, I just don't know if doing like activism in the art world especially is good for anything. And I say that as someone who's done it for many, many years. Like, so I think that was another one of these icky things I wanted to work out. Like, is it even worth it to protest at the museum? The museum fucking sucks. It just does ontologically suck. So, I don't know, like...
Does anybody have any questions?
Yeah, maybe that's...
Go for it.
This is, like, not about your book. It's like a philosophical...
Yeah, great.
It's like you're the oracle and I want to ask it. Oh my god. What should we do with museums?
Oh, burn them all down. But what's fucked up about that is like sometimes, fragile things need support. And that's the thing that's kind of fucked in, like, that's the paradox of museums, is that they really can sometimes provide the resources that are necessary to make sure that some things are not totally obliterated forever. Like, and I mean objects. Like, I mean like a thing that maybe we would like to look at in 200 years. It's not going to survive 200 years unless it has a certain amount of support. And, I want to burn all the museums down. I hate them. But I have kind of been confronted with this paradox or this like conundrum in my own personal practice, because like last year I was in a museum show that asked me to work with an archive. And the way the archive has been, collected over the decades, the money that supports that archive is fucking problematic as hell, right? Like really not good. But the stuff in the archive, the actual objects and what they were originally used for, are amazing. There was a 15th century papyrus scroll that a witch had put a spell on to keep a woman in labor safe while giving birth. So it's got like 15th century vaginal fluid and like weird plant stains, and these were used in secret by women after they were banned in England during the post-Reformation era. So that they have one of these things is amazing. Like this is an amazing artifact, and the history of it is an incredible thing. But then, where it lives now and who takes care of it and what building is its address, like these are all really, a mess. It's just a mess. And so I don't know, like, when I was invited to do that show, the first thing that I told them was that I wanted to burn everything down. Like, I mean, frankly, like, they brought me to the site, like, I had to do the site visit, and they gave me a fucking stack of paper this thick that was a spreadsheet, like 150,000 rows of, like, the dimensions of their vitrines. And I had to use the vitrines, for these, very delicate objects. And so they gave me this thing, and the first thing I did was when I got home, I, like, threw it in the trash, and then to email them and be like, can you send me the document again? I misplaced mine. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I think there could be a way that museums could exist that might be better than, arms dealers on the board and that kind of nonsense. But also, like, they need a lot of money. Like, they need a lot of money. And I really do believe that the single most important thing to guarantee like an anti-ableist, anti-capitalist labor condition is enough time. And because we live in capitalism, that means money. And I don't know how to divorce these. I really would like to. I think that time equaling money is an abomination. But, like all of the people's like trying to do fucking labor unions and museums, like, we have to support them, because the work that they do is not inherently bad. They're trying to conserve these cool things. They're trying to, like, give support and resources to artists. This is cool, but then there's, like, this messed up power thing with Uber wealth and blood money, and I don't know. Anybody else jump in?
I have a really stupid question.
Great.
I just try to come up with the worst thing I can think of.
Oh, I'm so glad.
Yeah. So thinking about Korean American history, how does your work with that? What does it do to that?
That's not a stupid question. It's a great question. I love that question. I mean, Well, I have to say, the one of the life-changing kind of bucket list things just happened to me, which was that one of my favorite writers of all time, who is technically the first queer Korean American to ever be published, period, just interviewed me about this book for a fancy magazine, and I was just like, oh my god, in this Zoom, I was just like, I've read everything, I've read it twice, I listened to that talk you gave once, and I wrote it all down, I was just very like this. And he's an interesting example. His name's Alexander Chi. And he's an interesting example. We both have light eyes, so I also feel like a kinship. He has written so eloquently and specifically about being not just a Korean American, but a queer one. And he did a lot of activism work here too in San Francisco in the 80s with ACT UP and a lot of stuff with queer rights. And I think that as a particular strand of the tradition is the one that sort of came and got me or spoke to me the most. Certainly Teresa Hakchun Ka, who I'm missaying the name, but that was another example of somebody whose work that just kind of detonated what I thought could be possible writing from this position. One thing I have to say too is that I was really enculturated as a white person because my father, even though he's Korean, was really the mandate, as a first generation American was to assimilate. And so he really thought of himself as a white person. He carried himself like a white person. And that was a trip. I think one of the things that is true about Korean Americanness is there is a lot that has been made not available, either through trauma, intergenerational trauma with migration, with the war. My grandmother came during the war, the Korean American War. Or this kind of silence that kind of persists around a lot of that. For example, my grandmother's third husband was a Korean fortune teller, but we were not allowed to call him that. We had to call him a businessman. And so, this very Korean tradition of shamanism and fortune telling that was in the family, we were not allowed to talk about. He was an American businessman, So there's that kind of element to it. And I think some of this book is what I mean when I say, there's a hauntedness and a hauntingness to it, is trying to get at that. I don't know if it makes sense to say this to people who aren't Korean American, but there's a ghostly presence-absence thing to being a Korean American that for me, and for a lot of other Korean Americans I know. So I feel like I had to write a ghost story because I'm Korean American, and vice versa. It's like a tautology. Is that okay? Thank you.
I think we have time for one more question.
Yeah, one more. It's okay, you don't have to. Yeah?
Kind of a selfish one, but I'm wondering, I was listening to a talk by Candace Williams, and she had done a show, I believe, in Norway or something to that effect. And she talked about sort of the regional differences of where she's shown work and worked and interacted with others. I'm wondering, in your experience, sort of where is the place to be right now? Is it still Berlin?
No, it's not Berlin.
Where would you say
that's interesting. I don't know if I know where it is, but I can tell you what the differences are. I can tell you, first of all, that if I get an invitation, I know if it's from the music world, the art world, or the literary world based on how much time they give me. If it's from the literary world, they're like, hi, we love your work, we have no money, we'd love to publish you, it'll come out in 2 years. Literary world. Art world is like, hi, we love your work, we'd love to have something for our thing, we have no money, and it's coming out in 2 weeks. Art world. And the music world is vaguely in the middle. They usually have a little more money, though. They're like, we'll pay you $100 to open for somebody in October, and you're like, great, like, you know. There are vast differences that I've encountered with the European art world and the American one. And part of that has to do with where the money comes from, the funding, because Europeans get it from, you know, the government. The governments think art is important, and so they fund most of their art and cultural institutions. That is good and bad. It kind of sucks in some way because it means you're beholden to, like, you do so many surveys at the end. Like, they give, like, the audience a survey of your work, and then they give it to you at the end, you know, and it's like, oh, I thought it was, like, hard to read or whatever. And they have to do that for their funding, like their kind of grant reporting, is they need to do extensive audience engagement to show the government, you gave us money for a good reason. So that is okay sometimes, and also, like, a little bit weird in other cases. The other thing that I would say that's maybe a bit inflammatory is I feel like some things around politics that seem like kind of basic to us now in America have not happened in other parts of the world. I think this is an example of, like, why Documenta was a dumpster fire. But to be fair, maybe American imperialist ideas shouldn't, you know, be everywhere in the world, especially in the art world. I think what's disconcerting to me about the art world in general is that it isn't local. You know, like, that was the problem in Documenta. Is that all of these artists and this work that was local, very local, was sort of brought to the middle of fucking nowhere in Germany, in Kassel. Why? Why would this thing that was made for a very specific local community be there? And what then happened was the audience in Kassel who went, they were like, what is this? Well, we don't know how to look at that. It's like a mud hut from something that, you know, it was like, why is it in this white-walled space? And so I think that is, to me, what the issue is about a lot of the kind of extractive, colonial, imperial problems in the art world, is that it's fundamentally not local. And so you kind of you get messed up problems with that in terms of audience. What is even the way to look at this? What is the critical discourse to use for it? Who's paying for it? Why are they paying for it? You know, all of these questions, I think, happen when you start doing this globalized international art market thing. So I don't know where you should go.
Or you could stay here.
Yeah, we just stay here. It would be cute here. You know? Yeah.
Thanks, Johanna.
Thank you, Vivian. Thank you, everyone. It was really lovely.
Well, stick around if you have other questions or want to get your book signed.
Yeah, if you want to ask me a question that you don't want it to be, like, recorded for posterity and beamed out to everyone, I'm happy to answer. And then also I'm signing books now, I guess. Yeah.
Thanks so much.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Green Apple.
Thank you, Green Apple. Thank you, Tara.
And you keep it going for Vivian Sming.